What's up, everybody? Got a pretty exciting podcast today with a former Special Ops Green Beret in the United States military, the most powerful military force ever humanity has ever witnessed. And he was out of that most powerful military force humanity has ever witnessed. He was in a elite unit that most never will make the cut. I know I couldn't. Chase, welcome to the podcast, brother.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. I just want to start off and say thank you for your service, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you, man. You know, I just respect you guys so much, man. You know, law enforcement and military in February of 2026, they don't get nearly the respect that I think that they deserve in the United States. A lot of our law enforcement's former military and veterans too, and it's just shameless what the woke pagans are doing, man. It's just
yeah. It sucks. It sucks because it's like, you know, what did you sign up for? I mean, you didn't sign up for like, you know, recognition or anything like that, but then you just at least expect not to get like crapped on because you signed up for it, you know. So, but it is what it is, man.
I was in a law enforcement academy in Chantilly, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington D.C. And I was a teenager, man, but I got kicked out of the other high school. I was a little bit of a bad boy, man. And the thing is my favorite class ever was going to Chantilly High School to go to the law enforcement. And yeah, man, that in the business class, those were my favorite classes. And I got kicked out of that class. And that was the class I actually liked, you know? So, you know, like we would fight. Yeah, bro, we would fight, you know, we do hand-to-hand combat. We would learn. I mean, it was just amazing. Like I got to go with the Fairfax County Police Department, that Explorer program as a teenager I got to participate in. And man, I was just obsessed, bro. There was a point I was obsessed with going into the Navy SEALs and doing like a certain amount of push-ups, sit-ups, running 3 miles in 18 minutes or less. I was like obsessed, bro. Like I just before we get into this Middle East, man, it's just you know, it's definitely it's just very fascinating. I don't know too many guys like you. You know, what did you know you were going to go and like not only join the military, you were going to go and you're like the Harvard. Like, did you know you were going to get that successful at it? Or
yeah, so I was what we call them an X-ray or 18 X-ray, which is it's a contract you can take when you go in, where you go straight, like you go straight to get a chance to try out to go to the Q course. So you go through, you know, selection and all that, but you go through infantry basic and then OSA, whatever. And then you go to airborne, then you go straight to Fort Bragg. You do a preparation course and then you go straight to selection. And if you get selected, then you get to start the course. And if not, then you go needs of the Army. So it's still kind of a scary, you know, like there's no guarantees obviously. So, but yeah, man, it's just, it worked out.
Yeah, man. And then how many years were you doing this?
So I'm a medic, so it was a little over 2 years was my Q course time. So I was about 3 years in the Army when I went to group.
Nice, man. And then are you allowed to say like what, you know, like what countries or what region, neighborhoods in general are you allowed to? I don't know, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I went to Tajikistan, Afghanistan, Iraq, and I did a mission in the UK and then in Africa. I was in a couple places there, so.
Bro, that's crazy that you say UK, man. It's like people joke around. They say, you know, London stan. You know, like it's like was it something to do with the migrants?
No. We were like helping test base security there. So it was we do a thing called red cell training, and it's really something that everyone should do from all the way down to like local law enforcement. They should be doing it, but. Basically, you set up a red cell, which is your like opposition force, and then you have a white cell that's kind of like overlooking it, and then you have the client. The client whether that be whatever unit, or it could be a commander for a unit and they want to make sure that their unit's doing all the stuff they do, then like we would go probe, whatever they want to be probed, and, do all that fun secret squirrel shit. So
What years were you in Iraq?
late. I was late. It was after all the good stuff happened there. Well, it's not really good stuff, but you know what I mean? All the war fighting. It was 2015 in Iraq.
Yeah, it's interesting, man, because like I think a lot of my family. So my family, for people who don't know, my family fled Iran in 1979. My grandfather was a major general. He worked with the Shah, and he was a commander of Mashhad, which is the second largest city of Iran. And when IRGC came, they killed a lot of my grandfather's best friend. They murdered her. It was a slaughter. And and my grandfather was shot about 5-6 times. He was an Iranian man. He was about 19 years old. He trained in Palestine, went back to Iran, and he attempted to, when they're doing the salute, he took an AR out and 5.6 right in my grandpa's chest. He survived. It was a miracle. The soldiers jumped on the guy. And then right after that, my grandfather had to flee shortly after 1979 through Turkey. They bombed the house, the safe house that he was hiding in. And he came to the United States. Americans literally saved his life, So I think there's other Iranians. I think there's, Cubans. I think that, maybe there's Chinese, there's Russians who come to this country, man. And for us, our appreciation, allegiance to this country. My father would tell me, my father passed away, but my father would tell me, I say, he'd say, no, love, he would say, love, love Iran. Yeah. But love the United States. Love the United States. Be good to the United States. My father felt the same. He was also a Trump supporter, but my father was very, very adamant about give respect to this country. This country took us in,
Yeah.
And
I mean, that's the whole, like, everyone thinks of, if you're against illegal immigration, then you're against immigration. That's silly. It's like, we want great people to come here. Obviously there's a right way to come here. I understand that, like, the system probably needs a lot of overhaul, like there's obviously better ways they could be doing things, but like guys like you and guys who've seen the horrors of some of these other systems and some of these other governments, it's good, to come in and then tell people, like, hey, you don't understand what it's like, because most Americans don't have any idea, man. They don't know anything beyond Netflix or whatever show they watched on YouTube, or the whatever podcaster they're listening to, which also probably doesn't know what they're talking about either. So,
I mean, Chase, I think, like, when I speak to someone like you, it's like I know that the neighborhood, so it's not even like I'm having like a very like shallow. Thank you, Amanda, for reposting the stream. Thank you, everyone, in general, for joining. We're just getting started. Already over 300. I think it's going to be a big stream tonight. Please retweet and share. And any questions, and we're going to have a Q&A too, so anyone could ask questions. We have a very special guest here, Chase. So, Chase, it's like I feel like with you, it's not like it's just like not like another American that doesn't know maybe the distinction between Iraqi and Iranian. Like I think you clearly understand the distinctions.
Right.
So I'm just curious, man, for people who don't know, like when people say Iraqi militia, okay, how many of those Iraqi militia do you think actually take orders from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, in Iran?
Enough that we were like legitimately concerned. We would get intel briefs about it a lot while we were there. So we were in BIOP and we were training. Basically, we reset up the commando course for the Iraqi army because they had kind of just fallen, and they were no longer actually doing even a selection or a pipeline for it. They were just like certain dudes straight out of basic they're the Iraqi basic then they're going straight and then to the commando course, and the course wasn't even like set up or run correctly. So when we went in, that was like our kind of direction, was just reset up the commando course and then get everything, get everything from a selection all the way set up through each phase so that they do actually have a pipeline for it. And yeah, man, they would be marching next to us, and our interpreter was like, yeah, they're chanting to the Ayatollah right now. And I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Like, we're like walking in biop with a bunch of dudes that are like talking about how loyal they are to the Ayatollah. So yeah. I mean, it was, it's a shaky little line there that was kind of weird. But yeah, we found out 3 weeks after we were there too. We were on a compound that was a diplomatic compound inside of biop. So we had our own inner security for that compound, but biop itself just has Shia militia as the outer cordon. And so we didn't know that until 3 weeks in, because our fox at the time was not the greatest of foxes. So another fox had to come in and take over and be like, hey guys, when y'all leave this compound, you have to be like fully ready to go, because you don't actually know what's on the other side. We're like, awesome, great to know. So
if you were in occupied Iran right now, okay, if you were there right now, is there is there a particular weapon that if it was used, it's a distinction that you would say, okay, that's an Iraqi militia, or there is none?
I mean, if they're using anything American, yeah, I mean, that would probably tip me off a little bit more. But I mean, again, also we didn't deal a lot with anything inside of Iran. Obviously, it was definitely a no-go to even get close to there. So they used all of our stuff. I mean, they were using all NATO. There was every day a plane was coming in from one of the coalition nations that was full of ammo, full of all kinds. I mean, they were getting millions of rounds in a day. They were getting weapons, all kinds of stuff. We went through with them to kind of inventory all their stuff, because they had like hangars and warehouses full of just stuff that no one really knew what they were. And so the Iraqi government was like, hey, we need to figure out what's all in there. We opened one of them up. It was like PBS 14s. Probably, I mean, there had to be, I don't know, there's a warehouse full of them. That's all it was. And so then each warehouse would be like a different kind of either weapon system or nods or something, some kind of coalition, NATO type gear that was sent in. So that's what they all use. So, if they're bringing people in from Iraq to help, then they're probably, the Iraqi militias, they're probably using our weapons, which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's it looks like they're also using chemical weapons over there on the Iranians.
Yeah. I've heard that too.
You've heard that?
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it's an entrenched authoritarian regime, and they're ruling through fear. That's how they've been ruling for quite a while now. And so fear is all they have. And so they're going to use whatever tools they have, and chemical weapons or, any biological weapons, all that stuff is terrifying. And, if you have crowds out and you drop mustard gas on people, they're, less likely to form crowds from there on. So it's all just tactics for sure. It's terrible, but it's like part of their playbook.
When you're doing this over there, how much of the intelligence do you think actually comes from civilians against their will?
You're saying like the IRGC?
Yeah, like in Iran right now. Do you think a lot of the human intelligence that's coming out of there is there's just so many Iranians that they're volunteering. It's not against their will. They openly want to collaborate, let's say, with like American special ops or Israeli special ops intelligence agencies. They're volunteering. They want to do.
Yeah, there'll probably be plenty that would do whatever they can to get out of the Islamic regime's control. I mean, you're obviously going to have your hardliners. You're going to have your people that are. I mean, we have it in America. We have people on both sides, which is actually insane if you think about it. But we have insane people on both sides that would 100% toe whatever line they needed to toe to please that government or whichever one was in charge, and be okay with atrocities. And that's just the reality of the world. And sadly, so you can flip the coin, but so in Iran, there's no different. There's going to be your hardline people that believe it, that truly believe that the Islamic regime is holy, that they should have control, and that whatever they need to do to maintain control is appropriate and okay. So that's and like I said, that would really happen in any country. I mean, it happened in Germany, it happened in Cambodia, it happened in China. Like, it's happened everywhere where collectivism is kind of taken over and then turned into authoritarianism. You always have, there's at least a percentage of the population that's going to wholeheartedly go along with it.
Yeah, so like when you're saying that even here we have that issue, like for example, when I look at, and I don't know if this is what you were alluding to, but like when I see like Tucker Carlson, I think of like, in my mind, I just imagine Al Jazeera. They did like an ad on a job website, and it said work from home, content creator, looking for an English speaker, do not need to relocate to Doha, and you're in the United States. And then they just said, yeah, and then I get, yeah. Yeah, right. And I can imagine Tucker then at night, his wife's preparing dinner. He goes in the kitchen, he has a tortilla chip with some avocado. And he's like, yeah, this is amazing. I don't even have to move to Doha. We can hang out here in Maine and Florida, and no one will even know I'm working for Al Jazeera and I'm next to Mehdi Hassan. They'll all think I'm American because I got Tucker Carlson podcasts. I'll take American sponsors, and then I'll just get business deals from the side. And it just all launders. And like the thought that Tucker Carlson will stop, why would they probably pay him more? There's a good chance they pay him. They're the highest. It's not like, oh, he fell off Fox, bro, and like now he's done. No, he might actually be making even more money through business deals.
He's for sure making more money now than he was at Fox. Dave Rubin did let me see if I can find it. I'll try to find out while we keep talking. But Dave Rubin did a post about kind of what we're seeing with Megyn Kelly, with Tucker Carlson, and how they moved from this position of kind of authority in the media, right? So like their mainstream media authority of like we can say whatever we want, and a lot of people are going to believe us because we're the media and we're the trusted source, whatever. It happens on both sides, obviously. But then they leave this media role and they no longer have that backing, but they're still in that same kind of mentality of where they can do whatever like the news is what they put forth. It's not about finding the truth. It's about them establishing what the narrative is going to be and then pushing it. And so they're still doing that. They're just doing that on their own now. And they are making more money on it too. And, Qatar has a lot of money, man. So yeah, it's what per capita, it's the third highest GDP in the entire world. And it's a tiny state the size of Rhode Island. So yeah, like it's kind of nuts if you think about it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it is.
Also, there's only 300,000 Qatari citizens, and all the rest of the almost 3 million there are slaves. Basically, we don't call them slaves because it's 2026, but they're slaves.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and they get away with it. And Qatar was also in the Epstein files. I know no one, maybe Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly will never want to discuss that, or Candace Owens, but
right.
They were also there. But so when for civilians, all right, there's a question, in general, like for civilians, when you look at the news and you say, okay, USS Lincoln, it's going to the Middle East. These aircraft carriers are going to the Middle East. Where planes are going to the Middle East, into the Strait of Hormuz. In general, is that also like would you consider that just psychological? Is that just a part of the psychological warfare? Like, for example, when Iran then it goes on to, maybe it's an Iranian alt account from Pakistan, and they say, oh, cargo jets coming from China to Iran. Is this all just psychological warfare that we're looking at? But
I mean, yes and no. It doesn't mean that it's not true what's happening. But it's just, when you posture for war, nothing has changed in the last 1,000 years of how you're going to posture for war. It's just the speed of it. And now our ability to identify it, because anybody, there's satellites everywhere. And if you know anything about, the like any NASA satellite, right, or any public domain satellite, all those feeds and those pictures have to be released to the public. And so, and there's people that literally just troll those and go through them like incessantly, even though like there might be something there one time, right? And so there's people that go through this what we call open source information, OSINT, and they analyze it. So, and another thing is there's no there's not an intelligence. Intelligence doesn't just exist in the wild. It's not something you just go like, oh, I picked up this thing and it's like intelligence. That's not the way it works. Intelligence is information that has been analyzed and then has been given a priority based on the contents of that information, right? So how important is it to whatever problem or whatever issue we're talking about, or really anything? Is it important to the battle space? Is it important to the theater? Is it important to that country? Is it important to this country? Whatever it ends up being, that's why it comes through and then it gets classified and go on and so forth, right? So then it becomes intelligence from that point. Otherwise, it's just information, which is just data or whatever. So people have to go through that and analyze that to get that out. So a lot of people don't really even kind of understand how that works. So we're just seeing the world now in a different light, where we can tell when things are happening, when 50, 100 years ago, we weren't able to do that as easily. So you're getting a lot more information that way. So yes, psychological things. I mean, they know there's going to be responses to this. So like, again, 50 years ago, Russia knew when we moved troops, right? Or so on and so forth. There's all kinds of different ways that they were tracking on how troop movements, everything. There's a whole reason why during World War II, there was an entire operation where they blew up, fake blow up tanks and fake blow up boats and all kinds of stuff. And it was a whole fake invasion planned on a different beach to confuse Hitler. So everything that hits the public, yeah, I mean, it's going to be used in some way, but we don't actually know exactly the reasoning behind it or how it's going to be used. So,
yeah. So like, for example, like so you say a part of, so some of this like is bargain is just, it is a little bit, it's just, we have social media, bottom line. Like now
right.
we like, yeah.
Right.
Like it's
now everyone's seeing what the president, again, 50 years ago, only the president and certain other people, with high up clearances are seeing this kind of stuff. Now everybody's seeing it because we have access to a whole different world and a whole different, I guess just the internet, and then the databases that come along with that, and all the open source information that we can get now. So,
and I'm just speculating here, I guess this is speculation. To me, I like the way it looks. And I've been to Iran, I've been to Israel, I've been to Turkey, I've been to Egypt, I've been to the UAE. I mean, I've gone quite a bit to the Middle East, So, if I had to say, why is Trump not going in yet, other than political, diplomatic reasons, economic reasons, I think that they're more worried about what comes after the bomb. After they bomb, I think that Trump's probably thinking, I don't want a civil war to cause, and then it gets messy, and then we have a situation worse than earlier with when we were not involved. Because there's also like MEK, which is a Marxist Islamist mujahideen. For people who don't know, right. These people you don't want these, and these people are going to fight. They can fight, and they have caused destruction, and right. They are largely known in Iran as traitors. They basically sided with Iraq when they gassed with chemical weapons Iranians, which was, this whole situation. This is the one more thing for a lot of people that don't know. The thought of this genocidal psychopath Ali Khamenei bringing in Iraqi fighters is it's one thing that I think the West does not talk about, is how big of an act of betrayal this was to his country that he was supposed to protect from foreign invaders. It's like Trump saying he's going to bring in Al-Qaeda, or not Al-Qaeda, he's going to bring in IRGC to the United States, go to Minnesota and attack everyone who's a leftist who says F Trump.
Yeah.
And kill them, and just kill them, and rape their daughters.
Yep.
Like that's the sort of insanity and betrayal. Like we've crossed this red line. So when I think about, okay, what's going on here? This is my view on it.
Mhm.
And I did, I don't know as much, how you look at this, but I don't, it's, hey, let's cover our bases. And I actually think the war has started. I think we just don't see it. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of special ops. I speculate that there's already special ops guys in there, intelligence agencies in there. They're penetrating and they're collecting a lot. And I think that once we finally see a bomb from Trump and it goes on Drudge Report and it goes on MSNBC, by then, like, we've already gone like 80% into the game. It's already 80% into the war, or a big portion of it is already done. And this is just stuff's happening now at 3 o'clock in the morning, every night, 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. There's things going down. It's just we just don't know about it, and that's it. I just, to me, it just seems like it's going to get messy after.
Oh yeah. Well, so you're right,
What do you?
and
Yeah.
you're right in a lot of those aspects. So yes, insurgencies take time, right? So they don't generally happen overnight. Now, I mean, you can have your huge show of force march where and then the leadership of that country escapes and leaves, and then they take over, and then somebody else transitions to power. However, that happens that happened in Africa a lot over the last 50 years and 100 years. Different things like that. But here, with an entrenched regime like this, so again, he's there, the leadership of the Islamic regime is not necessarily going anywhere and then living the way they are now. They may get asylum somewhere, they may go to another country if they are able to escape, but it's a little bit more difficult for them. They're entrenched, so there's not a whole lot of ways out for them if they do lose, which makes them more bold to do some things that we've obviously seen, some terrible things to the populace, because at the end of the day, the ends justify the means to them. Insurgencies have to unfold over phases. Okay, so for us, we go through a 7-phase process where it's all the way from preparation to you go through different phases, build up, and then finally to employment. And employment's going to be when actually all this stuff starts happening overtly, where everybody sees that. We're not seeing a lot of stuff happening. One, because they're under a blackout, or I think some of it's we've been getting a little more information lately. So I think there's probably some, they're probably targeting some of that infrastructure that is causing the blackout or causing the jammings, which is good. I did a space or a stream probably a week ago, and was talking about the importance of the resistance movement's ability to show the world, and this would be kind of essentially showing Trump and showing the United States military advisors and planners that they are going to win, and that they do have they have infrastructure in place, or a government in exile, however you want to call it, or a shadow government that can successfully take power once the Islamic regime is displaced. And until these certain things line up and they happen that way, the United States is not going to just preemptively launch bombs in the event that they weren't successful. The resistance movement then is no longer, wasn't ready, or whatever the case may be. They're not going to preemptively do that and then leave a chance where the Islamic regime survives it and then has proof that the U.S. attacked them, because then they have a casus belli against us, and they can bring in outside help, whether that be Russia, whether that be China. Russia's a little bit tied up, but Russia's not as tied up as everybody thinks. The Ukraine-Russia war has been at a stalemate for a long time, and they're doing the same European style warfare they've been doing for 100 years, trench warfare. They're just doing it with drones now. So now it even makes it even more painstakingly slow, because every inch that you take forward, like an FPV drone, they fly in and just blow you up. So it's just more like targeted artillery. But get back on the point. Sorry, kind of off on a tangent there. But if we were to do that at the wrong time and attack at the wrong time, and then the Islamic regime is not overthrown, then now internationally, and from a standpoint of just war versus unjust war, that kind of puts us in a murky waters, which is where no leader wants to be in that position, right? So why would Trump be like, yeah, let's just bomb them? I'm assuming what Trump is telling his military advisors, the Joint Chiefs, and everybody in the planning cells of this, is that I want the best chance of success which means that we have to wait until the Iranian population and the resistance movement has moved to a phase that is appropriate for us to then give them assistance. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, here, I want to play some footage here. And like when you just see, what you think about it when you look at it. Here we go. 1 second here. All right. So this is footage out of Iran. To you, I mean, like when you see something like this, is this could this be just any country? Could this just be? Do you think, like, when you look at this, do you think this is Iraqi militias, or you think that, or you can't tell or there's nothing to distinguish them?
I mean, it could be. They're bringing in. I mean, they've already brought in thousands of different fighters from all over, though. So it could be Iraqi. I was reading some reports of them bringing in. I did a thing about it. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, there's like and this was probably a little over 2 weeks ago, and they'd already brought in between 5,000 and 10,000 outside, mercenaries, from Iraq, from some from Pakistan, and so they're definitely getting outside help so that they can control this better. Because again, this happens a lot for authoritarian regimes. It's the same reason why Maduro was guarded by Cuban guards, right? He wasn't guarded by Venezuelan guards, which you would think would be kind of weird, but it's really not. They hire these mercenaries out because there's no loyalties, right? It's loyalty to money, really, which is fine with them because they don't have ambition. Then they don't have any, they're a foreigner. They have no claim to anything in this country. There's no like chance to keep what you kill if things still like that still exist. But so they do the same thing here. Also, they're policing and they're killing Iranian civilians, and just a psychological aspect of that is if you bring in foreigners to do that, they're going to have an easier time doing that than someone else just standing there and mowing down their own neighbors. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, so did you think so in Venezuela, for example, were the Cubans more vicious with the Venezuelans? Very similar to the Iraqis with the Iranians?
I mean, yeah, it's going to be easier to convince them to commit atrocities against the Venezuelan people than it would be to get a Venezuelan person to do it to other Venezuelans. Again, you're still going to have some motivations. Like this is any country you go into. I mean, there were Nazis that did evil things, but then there was Nazis from other places that they kind of conquered and they brought in because they knew that they could use them in certain regions better than others. So
yeah, actually, it's interesting you say the Nazis. So I married a German woman. I've had a home in Germany since 2020. I go back and forth here from the United States and Germany, and in Germany, man, I generally only meet Americans that are either defense contractors or they work on a military base. So they're soldiers, and
right.
And in regards to the comment you made about the Nazis, man, there are a lot of Germans, and this is something that I learned after I moved to Germany. There are a lot of Germans that were actually against the Nazis. A lot of people don't notice. Not all Germans are Nazis. My wife's parents were not Nazis. Her parents, right. It's actually very insulting to say all Germans were Nazis because so many Germans actually were murdered for not doing the work of a Nazi. And there were Germans actually that fought against the Nazis. So it's one of the most disrespectful things I think to say to German. And perhaps I'm biased because my daughter's half German. Obviously I'm sensitive about it because I think it's a great country and I don't think they get the respect they deserve. Also, Germany, they do an outstanding job. I want Americans to understand this. They do an outstanding job at protecting the Jewish communities in Germany. I'm also Jewish. I have no reason to lie. It's like I would tell you. I think if anyone that knows my content, I don't hide. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Germans are actually very good at protecting the Jewish communities. In fact, if anything, they're accused of going a little bit too much. Now, the problem in Germany that I find and I'm not German, I don't get involved in their elections. I'm not endorsing any political party. I do have friends that are involved with AFD, but I'm not supporting any political party. When I say this, it just seems like the big problem in Germany is that there's migrants that came there from countries like North Africa and the Middle East, and Islamists. And they generally have such a disrespect for the German culture. And even these free, the 2 years after October 7, you could look at these mass protests, man. I mean, truly mass protests, free Palestine. And if you talk to a German, though, Chase, if you talk to a German, many Germans will tell you, oh, yeah, that's not even actually Germans at those marches. No, you do have Germans at those marches that they're woke. The woke left in Germany is something else. Right. But a lot of that is actually the migrants. And I think that we got to a point where my wife and I were at a Christmas market, and there's just so much police, man. In our city in Northwest Germany, it's called Bochum, a size similar to like maybe like a Charlotte or Detroit, and it's a good, it's like a true German city, and the amount of law enforcement at these Christmas markets to keep the people safe it's a lot, man. I mean, you're talking about barriers, so you can't even drive. The way they think, man, is they have barriers on the roads, dude, because they're thinking someone's going to take a car and just go run in.
Yep, because it's happened quite often.
And it has happened. And I don't know what they're going to do, man, in Germany, man. Because that's a whole nother podcast. But I'm just telling you, man, like that's a big, and then you're also seeing the correlation of this far right nationalist German AFD guys coming in saying, hey, you know what? F you, we're taking our German culture back. I can't blame them. It's their country. Like it's their country, man. Like how could, like when I go in Germany, I would never put imagine like your backyard, right? Like I would not go put an American flag in my German backyard. The reason I wouldn't do that personally, I love America, bro. I love America. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. I love America. The only reason I wouldn't put an American flag in front of my home in Germany is because we bombed the heck out of these people. Like we fucking slaughtered these people, and like, what am I going to do? Then put an American flag. The Germans there are just that. You have German nationalists. That's their country. That's their country, dude. That's their country.
I would understand, like, if you come to America and even if you're German, if you're flying a German flag like in front of your house, it'd still be kind of weird, right? So like even same. I feel the same way. I wouldn't be flying an American flag, necessarily at my house in Germany if I had one. It's just kind of one of those common courtesy things. Yeah, I mean, yes, you can do it if you want to, whatever. But you can also go up to the wrong dude and say something and then get punched in the face. So it's like, pick your battles, bro. What do you want to do?
I was in Panama City Beach. I got a good friend of mine. He's like a good old boy. He's like he even referred to himself as a redneck. And he also called me like a sand nigger. He's a profane guy. So,
you're normal redneck, man. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, him and I go back and forth. But the thing is his name's Carl, and Carl, we were on a boat, this little boat he had, and in Panama City Beach, it's like deep Southern American culture, and there's all these Trump flags and all these American flags. It was a beautiful day. We were out. And I asked him, I said, imagine if we took the Iranian flag and we put this up, what would happen? And I think, man, like in a southern place like that, man, you never know, bro. Maybe one of those guys will take out a fucking gun, they think we're pirates or like terrorists or something, Right. And I think, because that's crazy, bro. Like, can you imagine? Imagine a CCP flag in like near the the Panama City Beach, bro. Just think about how crazy that is. Like you see.
I think the sadder part about all that is that less of the population would even know what flag it was. then
Yeah,
like most people wouldn't even know. They just be like, and most people don't know what the Iranian flag is. Most people, like they don't know what that flag is. They don't know any flag. Most people only know the Ukraine flag now, and the Russian flag, and the Palestine flag, which is really the Jordan flag they just stole from. But neither here nor there.
yeah, man. Yeah, no, that's true, man. To me, I look at the whole Palestine Yasser Arafat as just, it's truly just like KGB. The Palestinian guys were training in Russia, bro. Like it's like the guy was Arafat, the symbol of like these Palestinians, bro. He literally was not. He's from Egypt, first of all,
Yeah.
right? So it's like, what are we doing here? Yeah, what are we doing?
I mean, that's how people don't understand that about Gaza is that, I mean, they spent decades with taking a bunch of funds and humanitarian aid from the world and literally building it into a city for war. That was the whole purpose of Gaza. Like, right? So people don't understand Gaza City, like the detail. I mean, they built tunnels through the whole city, under the city. There's murder holes in almost every building. They're like, why did they have to bomb every building? Because every single building was set up as like a terrorist stronghold. That's what people don't understand. They can't fathom that happened. So everything else must be like false, to them, which is, it's hard to explain to people that don't understand. You can't look at it like if I was going to compare Gaza to anything in Iraq, it would be Fallujah. And it's still not even like Fallujah still didn't have the time and infrastructure built in that like Gaza did. But from a standpoint of like, they built in murder holes, they built in all kinds of, traps, booby traps, all kinds of stuff all over the city in Fallujah. The same thing, they did that in Gaza just times 10. So it's kind of crazy.
So I want to ask you here, man. So back to did you ever go to Pakistan?
No. Well, we may have strayed across the border one time on accident, but other than that, no.
Because man. Yeah, because in Pakistan they have a Shia militia, and I would imagine you definitely know that. But for people who don't, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Pakistani Shia militia, they're definitely recruited, trained, and they get money from the IRGC Quds Force.
Oh,
and
100.
Yeah,
they wear the same armor, and like all their gear, it's all the same. Yeah.
So what's crazy is would you say would you say it's pretty accurate that right now probably in occupied Iran we have Pakistani Shia men from like these poor neighborhoods. They were already trained, recruited, funded. They're armed by IRGC, and then Iran can just have plausible deniability, right? Like they could just say, oh, they're not, they're like. It's not the Pakistani military. It's not an official like, oh, Pakistan's helping Iran, but they actually are.
It's a paramilitary or a whatever you want to call it, mercenary force. I mean, Hitler did the same thing. Hitler had the brown shirts, right? Same kind of concept. They're a paramilitary force that he could deploy strategically to use in certain areas to either cause violence or cause fear or whatever he needed to do. And he used that. And then when it was convenient for him, once he had taken power after that, then he, locked up the evil brown shirts and killed a bunch of them and all this stuff. It's the way these regimes work. So they're going to bring these people in because they're disposable too. I mean, and they're not their own countrymen. They're paid. Either I don't even think it's necessarily even mercenary is a good term for it because they're like religiously involved to a point where it's like, yes, they're going to be paid for it, but they also believe in the mission that they're being given. So, in
general, though, when Ali Khamenei wants to use proxies to attack you guys, right? American troops, American bases, camps. Do they have a preference, you think, of using Iraqi or Pakistani?
For when we were in Iraq or when we were in Afghanistan?
Yeah, just in general, like in the Middle East, like in general, do they prefer to use Iraqi or like Iraqi, militias to hit directly to the U.S. forces? Like even right now in occupied Iran, let's say there's Americans there,
Hmm.
are they generally getting the Iraqi militia after to chase you guys down to come after you, or Pakistani fighters, or it makes no difference to them, or this is just irrelevant?
I mean, yeah, lots of militias, lots of proxy forces they're going to be using. If we were to encounter, so we're talking, if we were in Iran right now, if you're encountering actual IRGC forces, that's one thing. But if you're encountering actual Iranian military outside of the Quds, like then you're at a kind of a different level. So it's if you look at it like the SS, the Gestapo, versus in the Nazi regime versus the regular German army, right? So they weren't the same. German soldiers ended up getting the brunt of all the bad that happened. But like you said earlier, the Nazis were a small amount of Germans, right? And the true believers, especially, were even smaller. There was a lot of Nazis that were just like going along with it because it was either politically expeditious at the time, or they thought that it was going to give them a little bit higher standing in the government. A lot of them didn't realize what was about to happen. So, again, just like anything, you're going to have your hardliners that are down for all of the evil, and then you're going to have your other people that were just kind of caught in the middle and were like, oh crap, I didn't, this is a lot more intense than I thought it was going to be. And then you're going to have your people that weren't involved at all and were just citizens. And so you're going to have that dynamic. But again, if you're dealing with like local populaces and armed uprisings, you're going to want to send in your proxy forces and not your Iranian army to deal with that, right? Because push comes to shove, if you push a battalion out, whatever, a company out of your armed services, right? Think of it from a United States standpoint. If they push a battalion out and then they just see a bunch of women and men and women and maybe even children across from them, are they going to necessarily shoot, right? If they're ordered to? That's a question as a command, like as like an evil commander that you don't want to have. So who is going to shoot this militia or these guys? That's who's going to carry out the attack that we need to be carried out at this time. So that's kind of the way that I would think that you would see a lot more proxy forces do those kind of things.
When you were in Iraq, did you confront PMF?
No, we weren't really. We were actually Title 20 while we were there, so we weren't Title 10, like doing anything outside of BIOP. So we're kind of contained to that trading role there. So yeah, it was really, because this is, again, 2015, this is Obama's kind of on his way out. There was zero tolerance for any kind of international incident that was happening. I think we'd been there for about 4 months maybe, and one of our interpreters got blown up in a bazaar like in Baghdad. And then, especially once that happened, he was fine. He survived, but he didn't call for like 3 days. And he wasn't I was one of the dude that ran all the interpreters, and he wasn't one of my guys that like would just like not call for a few days. He was one of the dudes that was like every day he was ready to go and work. So I was like actually kind of worried. And then he was like, yeah, I got stuck in this hospital here. My phone was ruined and all this stuff. And after that happened, for sure, they were like, no one's leaving BIOP for any reason whatsoever after that. So yeah, it's kind of locked down a little bit more.
All right, guys. So I just want to say we're going to go over real quick some of the comments. Thank you, everyone, for retweeting, sharing the stream. We're actually on both Green Beret's channel and my channel here on X. So Vince Silva says they are bank guards. And Quisenberry, I hope I pronounced that correctly, says Cubans in VE had more ties to Russia and more recently China than Venezuelan criminal cartel with Iran, China, Russia. Ilahim reposted this stream. Thank you very much. Yes, my German friends tell me this. Wow, that's the traitor. Quisenberry, migrants in Germany, Erdogan's people buttressed by North African, other Muslims dedicated to taking over Europe. Not all Muslims like that, maybe, but 10% can force the rest to do Sharia. Hey, Jenny says, I love accidents. Amanda, like how ISI uses let. Yeah, so right now, do you think that a big challenge, or like if you were an Iranian protester right now, because I have people in Iran, like I
Mhm.
actually have people in Iran that look at my content, which is crazy. Like I look at my Instagram, and some videos. I mean, I literally get people inside of Iran who look at my content, um, and like if there were protesters inside of Iran and they're scared and they're hiding right now, and they're like, why isn't Trump coming? And oh, Nima's doing a podcast. The guy's not in the military anymore. He's just a civilian at this point. He's a veteran. But I wonder what this military guy would think. I wonder if I could ask this military guy who was special ops, who was like, James Bond, if I could ask him what does he think about me right now? Should I stay in the house? Should I wait? Should I what can I do? The internet's out. What can I do? And they want to know what an American former special ops Green Beret guy would think. What would you say?
Find the underground and get involved. Again, this is not without risk, because the IRGC, and then some of their other agencies inside the Islamic regime are going to be also trying to find these networks and close them. But so again, we'll talk about the phases of what needs to happen. So your preparation phase and is going to start it all off, right? And that's where they're going to really lay out whether there's a government exile at that point or not, is not, or a shadow government. If there is one, great, but if not, an underground, an auxiliary, and eventually a guerrilla force has to be built up. So this is going to take, again, like to move this boulder, it would take a village type of mentality. You're all going to have to jump in, and there is risk involved, and that it sucks that you getting involved could end up costing you your life, and it's really hard to how to explain this and without getting like, hey, this is real people's lives. But you have a regime in charge of you that is willing to kill as many of you as possible, as we'll just say as necessary, to end the revolution. You guys have to be harder, and you have to be more determined, and you have to get involved with the auxiliary and the underground, and then eventually the guerrilla force. You have to move this resistance movement forward to a phase where it's organized into, like I said, a system that the rest of the world can see is going to be successful. And this isn't going to be something that's broadcast, and it's not something that you need to necessarily worry about on your own. Like, oh, I have to help get this thing to here. No, you just need to go find the underground, and you should. I can't tell you exactly how to do that, but the people that are on the right side of this, the people that are on the side of trying to get freedom for the Iranian people, that's probably a good place to start, right? Figure out like, hey, how can I get involved? How can I help? And then kind of go from there. A lot of what needs to happen is deals with infrastructure and deals with access and placement to that infrastructure. So once you can get that, and then you can get the right people into the right places to either disrupt or dismantle some of these processes, which would be like the jamming that they're doing in major cities to stop Starlink. They've cut out all the internet, right? So they control all that. There's hubs for all of these things, right? If you could take over a power station that's the one that controls the power to an IRGC headquarters, so on and so forth, all these different things that you can do. That's what the underground and the auxiliary are working towards, to eventually have the guerrilla force. They'll do some sabotage on their own, but the guerrilla force is essentially what's going to be the kinetic force that will have to start this. All of these processes have to kind of unfold in a way that allows President Trump to, when he's getting advised and they're saying, yes, hey, they've taken key infrastructure here, here, and here. They own these cities here. They own a good percentage of this province now, and they're gaining ground, right? And so targets of opportunity is where it's all going to start, and then it's going to move forward to more strategic targets from there. Once you start hitting those strategic targets, there's going to be signals to the rest of the world that now you're in that phase, and now the rest of the world is going to start reacting, whereas they were waiting for that to happen. in otherwise. Does that make sense? So that
Yeah,
you have to, it has to get to a point where the rest of the world believes that there is a chance now that you will be successful with this insurgency. And that again, like you pointed out earlier, that at the end, there's not going to be another civil war. There's not going to be a power vacuum that's going to create another ISIS, or there's not going to be, all of these other things that you have to take into consideration. Who's the most stable person or group of people that can take over this country at that once it gets to that point, and then actually manage the country and bring it to a place of peace. And so that's what all the keys that we have to get to and see happen, so that we'll get some outside support, some real outside support. There's definitely support happening. And another thing we talked about earlier is whether there's special ops in Iran, or whether there's CIA or whatever. You got to remember, clandestine organizations and the intelligence community doesn't necessarily have to be on the ground themselves. It doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be Americans on the ground. There's probably a decent amount of Iranian citizens, and then other people that have free movement inside of Iran that are assets for not only the CIA, but for perhaps some European nations, for Israel, for some of these that can get some things done. So getting supplies in, all that stuff is happening under the radar. We're not going to know that, because if we knew that, then the IRGC knows that, right? So just because we aren't seeing a bunch of information doesn't mean that it's not happening. But the whole point of all this is that once it gets to a point where they can start popping some things off, that's when the world will join. We'll be like, okay, now we're here at a point that's not just protests anymore. It's not just people taking to the streets and just yelling about how angry they are. We're actually seeing significant gains by this movement. Let's support it kinetically with strategic strikes that'll allow them to move to the next phase of this, so that we can move forward.
Yeah, I mean, what would you say then? Like so what's a mistake though? So you have an unarmed Iranian right now. He's hiding. Internet's in and out. It's not easy for him to organize. And you're a former special ops, and this Iranian guy who's hiding right now, he wants to organize. He's listening to this podcast, and he's like wondering, what's one mistake he should avoid, so he doesn't get killed and identified, arrested, executed? Like, what's one big mistake you think that
I mean, definitely don't do anything digitally, right? They have everything locked, and like another key thing they would do is they could leave pockets open where signals could escape, so that they can track those signals, and then they'll come, with force to take you down because you allowed a signal out. So I would go low tech, which means no tech, right? So that's why the movement like Cover in Darkness will be good, but finding the people that you need to talk to and talking to them face to face, and doing it in a way that isn't suspicious, right? Again, so if you work this job and you go to work every day at this time, if you deviate that and don't do your normal things, then you might raise some suspicions with local authorities that are looking out for certain things that the IRGC has told them to look out for. And again, they may not even know why they're reporting these things. They're not going to be fully into the chain, but it's important to, again, you have to have, if you don't have anyone that you're close to, that you think would be a part of the movement, then really it's just, you're just gonna, I would say try to find that link somewhere without raising too many eyebrows that you're looking for that link. I don't know, it's a delicate situation, but it would just be like anything else before the internet. How did people find out about anything that was happening on? It was just all kind of word of mouth. I talked to this guy. Usually you're within 60 degrees of separation from almost anybody. So they're, word of mouth, trying to figure out who to talk to and then how to do the support you need. I saw a comment in here about access and placement and examples. So again, access and placement is the ability to have somebody on the inside of somewhere that is important or strategic to your needs. So Amanda's awesome. She always has great content. So say we want to take down this power grid.
Chase, real quick, just so everyone understands. Amanda says, ask him to explain access and placement again and provide examples of ideal targets. And by the way, this is in context of, we have a former Green Beret soldier here, American, and unarmed Iranians who are listening. What should they think? And just some advice. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. So access and placement is your ability to affect something in an area that is denied or has requirements to get into it. So a police station, a water treatment facility, a power station, a tower internet, ISP provider or something like that, or a radio station. Any of these things that are kind of like key infrastructure for what's happening, that's where you want to have access and placement to, which means that you have someone that is supposed to be there and has a reason to be there. And then they are going to be your eyes and ears, and they're going to help you either get whatever information you need in or out from that facility or that infrastructure. So, so that's all going to work through the underground and the auxiliary. That's really the whole point of the auxiliary. So the underground is going to be more your planning cells, your people that kind of understand what is going on and is planning things for the movement to do here and there and there. Your auxiliary is going to be your kind of normal everyday people. They're involved in the movement, but they're not going to planning meetings. They're not doing all that. They have a handler who's giving them the information and asking for them to do certain little things here and there. Again, you're going to be going about your normal daily life most of the time. And that's important because then you're blending in and you're not causing, you're not drawing attention to yourself by, I'm no longer going to go work at this factory. Like, you working at this factory actually may be perfect because you may have a key, you may be working in a key part of that where you can affect something that they need made a certain way, right? All these different things. Like, think the world's your oyster. Everything would be important. I mean, think about the access and placement that Mossad and Israel had when they did the pager attack on Hezbollah and Hamas, right? They literally bought a company and then transitioned in over years to sell those specific pagers to people that they had already identified as Hezbollah and Hamas for an attack that was going to happen years later. So the planning all went into that, right? It's just kind of my point. But that would be your access and placement. So that's again.
There's actually there's a fantastic movie. I just looked at the screening of it in Israel. My friend directed it. Danny A. He just directed a film about about the pager. It's coming out this summer. It's amazing, man. I looked at it in Israel. Yeah, it's amazing. I definitely recommend it. I think it's a banger, man. It's a banger.
Yeah, that operation was pretty amazing how they did that, and then how they kept that secret for that long. That's with that many people involved. It's pretty insane.
So we got a question here. Order of the Silent Cross. He says, how does this Green Beret Special Operations soldier feel about being a U.S. military soldier but fighting for a foreign nation?
Tell me you don't know anything about Green Berets without telling me, Broham. Green Berets, literally, our job is to go into other nations and train their people to overthrow oppressed government. That's our main core mission, right? So, like, how do I feel about that? I would hope there is green. I don't know if there's SF teams there right now. I doubt it, just because of the political climate and everything that would go along with if boots on the ground were actually found out in Iran. But if they were, I'd be very happy about that, because they would be. I mean, this is just a glimpse of how effective special forces teams are. We sent in, there was somewhere around, I think it was 12 to 16 teams total, went into Afghanistan 01, and within 37 days, with no conventional support and with intermittent air support, took Kabul. So with the Northern Alliance. So they went in, organized a fighting force, trained, and within 37 days took the capital of Afghanistan. So just saying.
Yeah, but prior to 9/11, prior to going into, any deployment into Afghanistan. I mean, I think the CIA was involved in Afghanistan for decades, right?
Oh,
They
the CIA is the only reason the SF teams were able to do what they were able to do. They'd already laid the groundwork and already had the contacts with the Northern Alliance warlords, and they set it all up, and then kind of helped us coordinate where teams were going and who they were going to work with. And then, from there, SF teams took it and did it. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole point of the CIA. That's the whole point. Everyone thinks that the CIA is about James Bond stuff, going, in suits to galas and like finding billionaire terrorists. That's the farthest from what actually happens. What a case officer's job is to go is whatever country they're working in is to identify and turn assets, which is people with access and placement, right? So you're not just going to go and turn a soccer mom who doesn't actually have a job, doesn't do anything. You're not going to what does you getting her on your side give you? Nothing, right? Unless her husband's someone important in that particular instance. But the CIA is coming in, they're finding these people that are in certain areas, and then they're trying to turn them to be assets for the CIA for the eventuality that something is going to happen and they need to use that asset for something forward. So in a condensed way to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the IRGC right now in Iran is maybe thinking to themselves, like the CIA, maybe they're scared that the CIA is there right now with Mossad, and they're just so entrenched with intelligence, any sort of, I say counterterrorism, the drone ops. They're building local partnerships. I think. I mean, I don't know, man. That's your world, man. It just seems like if I was IRGC right now, I'd probably think to myself, the soldiers are defecting. We have an issue with our currency. It's not looking good. Morale has probably dropped significantly. In regards to the information war, when we speak to our family outside of Iran, everyone's worried about us and is disgusted at what's going on.
Yeah.
Not only that, the economy is a disaster. Not only that, they killed and raped my daughter or my cousin or my wife or my wife's sister. I just
that's what's it's okay. I don't want to say great. That's what is good about this situation, though, is that this isn't a completely organic uprising. Like this wasn't. Were there potentially foreign services in there pushing things here and there on small scales in Iran? Absolutely, right? I mean, that's happening in every country on this earth. But was there a significant force of CIA assets and Mossad assets and all this, doing all kinds of things to bring apart? This isn't the 79 revolution. It's not the same. The 79 revolution was top up. This is top down. This is bottom up. So this is genuine outrage from the people because their economy is so terrible that they can no longer even buy food and groceries and everyday things that you need to just live. And then that plus the oppression of the regime. And it's only going to get worse as the regime clamps down even more. So, I mean, yeah, because like you just said, that every one of them has a family member or a friend likely that has been killed now by the regime, or someone that knows someone that has, which is going to create, the animosity from the Iranian people to finally be like, hey, we don't need this anymore. We can do this better. Let's get out from this oppressive rule. And like I said, once it starts moving along these phases and hitting these certain things, they will get out from under it. It's just again, it takes time. Insurgencies don't happen overnight. You go back and look at really any one of them. There are some that are quicker than others. Obviously, there's no perfect blueprint for how this is going to unfold, but there are phases and there are things that need to be accomplished first before you can move on to the next phase. So
it sounds very dark what I'm about to suggest here. And it's I get it. It sounds dark how I say this to people that have lost family and friends in Iran. However, do you think that for President Trump, he actually the more Iranians who die fighting this government, and the longer this goes on, not only do you have a poorer IRGC, not only do you have a more devastated economy, not only is the currency weaker, not only do you have more defections, not only have you, built more local partnerships, um, not only have you probably had more accidents. Um, it's sort of like Trump. The longer he waits, the better his hand is. Then and the law
Yeah.
and
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Again, it goes back to like strategic planners are making these decisions. Trump is one of those. He's one of the presidents that, just like the Venezuela raid, he told them, and this is it unfolded almost perfectly. I mean, they had one gunship that got shot, and other than that, but it didn't crash. So still pretty much went without a hitch. He directed them, hey, whatever you need to make this mission work in the best way possible with the lowest chances of failure. That's what I want you to do. You're the experts. Do it. So that's what he's likely telling his strategic planners right now, and you know, again, once they hit a certain point where it makes sense for these certain bombs to be dropped on strategic locations, that will then allow the Iranian people to fully rise up and take, back their country. That I think that we will get there. I wouldn't even say, yes, it strengthens his hand in the sense of that it strengthens his hand in the ability to help the Iranian people, because he's still going to be hamstrung by all of the other factors that go into this. Like if the Iranian people are not successful, then we just started a war. So, it's not as cut and dry as everyone tries to make it out to be. Yeah. And you can't make it into a moral argument, because it's terrible. It's a terrible situation that's happening. And it's happening because a evil regime is in charge, an authoritarian, tyrannical regime is in charge. But you just can't, again, unless we want to go to war with multiple countries, then it has to kind of unfold in this certain way.
So I have an image. I'd love to see what you think about this. So this is basically, okay. So this is basically just an image for people who don't know, who are just listening to this on the podcast. It's the IRGC. They deployed a swarm of around 40 fast attack vessels in the international waters of the Strait of Hormuz, which is very important in the Iranian Gulf. It's about 14 nautical miles off the Iranian coast, near a military base there, Shahid Saeed Majid base. And the people that were looking at it, the observers noted that the high altitude drone contrails producing cirrus cloud formations in the area. So, that's like when you look at something like that, and you're seeing these speedboats and drones, and then they cry victim to the UN. It's like people could say, "Oh, that's like the favorite thing of the IRGC, man." They escalate,
Mm-hmm.
and then they deny.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same thing Hamas does. The reason Hamas does that is because they're a proxy of Iran, so they're taking their tactics, and they're taking their training that they got from them to do all this stuff. It's the same reason why they'll try to negotiate a ceasefire, and then they'll use the 24 hours or so that they need to re-equip and then maneuver where they need to maneuver. Then they'll attack again. I mean, I see they're gonna maneuver however they feel like they need to. But they're always gonna try to blame someone else as the aggressor. That's just the way. That's the way to, every country has done that in history forever. So every country no, this is my war is just because of this, and your war is not just because of this. So whatever, it is what it is. Everybody knows that the Iranian, the Islamic regime is terrible and evil. So
when you heard about did you know, I don't know if you followed it, and I assume you did, but in the event you didn't, I think about a day or two back, there were drones that were taunting the Americans, and they got shot down, not one but two.
Right.
In like to the guys that are there right now in the Gulf, right? They're there in the Iranian Gulf, and they're like, what the heck are these Iranians even thinking? Like what the heck are they thinking to taunt us like this? Like it's like to the Western mind, I would imagine that people are like, man, these people are fucking crazy, man. You know, like even me, I'm Iranian. I tell you right now, bro, like I am like astonished at the balls to just keep doing stuff like this, which is it's almost like they think Trump won't do anything. It's like getting to that point where it's almost like, and not only do they think it's truly like they think he will not do something.
I mean,
I
I
don't
think
know,
it's a
maybe I'm
little
wrong.
I think it's a
But
little bit of that. I also think that they're just testing TTPs. They're testing to see when we're going to strike and when we're not. You know, how close can they get? It's just probing the perimeter. So, you know, in the old days, they used to do it with scouts that would, you know, kind of probe to find where forces were, and they would go out and see what they could see, and then they would report back. We just do it now with drones and with satellites. And so, yeah, I think it was part of just like I think it was like, hey, we're going to fly this out there and we're going to see what you're going to do about it too. Because if you don't shoot us down, then maybe we're a little more bold. If we can get close enough, maybe we can actually launch an attack or a counterattack or something. So, yeah.
so like, for example, the guys that are on this vessel or guys that are in American, like right now, the guys that are stationed out there, they're already deployed out there. What's the general vibe? And when if you've spoken to anyone, or what would you assess? Like, what would you predict the vibe is right now? There, are they excited? Are they scared?
Yeah.
What
This
do
is
you
a
think?
volunteer. We're a volunteer military, you know? So, I mean, obviously there's going to be some anxiety and some like fear that goes along with any time there's a potential combat situation going to happen. But I mean, anytime, you know, we were going in and we were going and leaving the wire or doing something, you're I don't want to say excited, but you're amped up. You know, you're ready to go. Like this is the whole purpose. You know, Green Berets can't do their jobs in the well. I guess we can't. We can probably do our jobs in the United States now because things are getting, you know, a little bit shifty. But you can't. You know, the traditional sense of our job, you can't do it in the United States. You can only do our job in other countries. So yeah, I think they're ready to go. And I think also, I mean, they're briefed on what's happening in Iran, especially if they're on float out there or they're you know, in that area. They've been briefed numerous times on what's going on, and that even justifies their resolve even more, for sure.
So when you look at a, you know, like when you clearly can find a presence of these high altitude drones, what does that tell you? Like in general, that the boat alone doesn't. Like, what do you think they're actually, aside from testing the waters, like you alluded to earlier, but what do you think they're actually looking at? Like the shipping, the U.S. assets. You think they're looking at response times?
Yeah, battle formations, what assets they have, I mean, how did they send a full, like they're looking at, did we send a full aircraft carrier strike group? Did we send just a couple of destroyers? Like, what are we bringing in to counter them? And I mean, there's a whole aircraft carrier strike group there, and a lot of people don't realize this, but one strike group has more military power than most nations on this earth do on their own, like their full military. So like pick a country other than your main superpowers, and one aircraft carrier strike group has more firepower than that country likely. So I'm not saying it does more than Iran, but it's a lot of bombs. One aircraft carrier strike group can do thousands of sorties, you know, over days and days and days. So yeah, it's a significant power, and so they're probably trying to get close enough to identify certain aspects of either that, like I said, the formation of headings of all different kinds of things, any information they can get to give them more planning as well. So it's just like anything else. You're going to have your forward observers, and that whether that's a drone or whether that's a team of dudes on a recce, or whether that's, you know, whatever that looks like, you're trying to get as much intelligence, information about the target or whatever you're up against, so that you can make your next move.
Yeah, I mean, if one U.S. carrier like this, one U.S. carrier group, could flatten most countries in days, why does the IRGC keep doing stuff like this anyway? I mean, are they actually trying to win the war, or you think they're just trying to hack the X algorithm, the news cycle, and oil prices instead? Or you think there's like a diplomacy, economic thing here?
I mean, they're an entrenched regime. Like I said, they don't have a whole lot of options, especially like not your mid-level guys, not even really your upper level. Like the only guys that if they fail are going to get out of this are the top leadership, right? So like the very few at the very top. So they're entrenched to the point now where like it's either win or they're going to die or go to jail. So it's kind of like, I mean, I keep going back to the Nazis. They do have similar tendencies, I guess you could say. But when World War II was looking pretty grim for Axis forces, there was a lot of people or a lot of soldiers that were getting ready to defect. There was a lot of like, what are we going to do now though? Because we're not the top guys. We're not the guys that are going to escape this fate. We're going to get mowed over and we're going to get destroyed. So that's kind of the same concept. It's win or die, and they're outnumbered too, and they know that. I think they also are just hoping if they can dismantle enough of the insurgency to continue to maintain control and maintain control of large portions of the country for a significant amount of time, then it's just going to diminish the amount of support that the resistance movement ends up getting. Because if they, again, like I said, if they can't move to these next levels of phases from the resistance movement standpoint, they're not going to get the external support that they really need to fully win this. Likely, there is a chance that they could do it on their own. I just don't think they're armed enough to actually do that. It's not like the United States where everybody has a gun.
So if you're out there and if you had to counter one of these like fast boat swarms and you want to do it without escalating into like a war, what tools would you say are most important to you at that point? Air power, electronic warfare, ISR, or something else, like in general?
You're saying like from the U.S. standpoint of these Iranian fast movers, or are you saying
from American standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, air. You're always gonna try to, especially fast movers like that. You're always gonna try to engage them from the air. It's gonna give you the best chance of success in that mission, and it's the lowest risk to men and mission. So, the only way you would interdict is if you identify that one of them had a strategic objective on it, which I don't know that there would be necessarily, unless maybe we don't know what is being either trafficked or moved on those, then maybe it's worth trying to interdict one of them so that you can get the intelligence from it. But otherwise, they would just be engaged, just like we're engaged in the narco speedboats outside of South America and between in the Gulf. So
we got a question here. Queensberry, IRGC trying to gin up excuse to attack Abe Lincoln, would want China to approve help. Yeah, so I don't quite understand the question, but I am actually, now that you mentioned China, how involved do you think communist China is in helping the IRGC in occupied Iran right now?
Very, very involved. People don't understand the importance of, like, say, just Venezuela and what was lost when we took Maduro. From a globalist kind of standpoint, from China, Russia, Hezbollah, there's Hezbollah operatives and training grounds in Venezuela, right? So all these things that people don't understand, they lost that, and they likely didn't even know that it was going to happen. Now, if they lose Iran, now they've lost their main proxy force for the Middle East, right? So You have, if Iran's no longer there, they're no longer backing Hamas. If the Islamic regime, they're no longer backing Hamas. They're no longer backing Hezbollah. They're no longer backing any. There's LET, like all these different groups that they are involved with. They no longer have that state backing them, and then that diminishes the power of all of those. And all of those are tools that not necessarily created by China, but China is going to allow them to manifest and to proliferate and to cause more trouble for the West and for the United States. Absolutely. Like, why would they not? We're adversaries 100% with China. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everyone's like, well, we have some trade with them. Of course we have trade with them. They're one of the biggest manufacturers in the entire world. You have to trade with them. It doesn't mean that we're not like significant adversaries with them. So they're highly invested in the Islamic regime and keeping the Islamic regime in power. And that's why you're seeing, we've seen flights, cargo ships out of Iran, and that's likely Chinese Chinese aircraft or Chinese vessels.
The thing is, man, is like, it's interesting you talk about the flights. I'll pull something up here, actually. Here we go. So this is basically 16 Chinese military this is recently, actually. This is on January 22nd. This came out in a period of 56 hours. 16 Chinese military transport aircraft have landed in Iran, marking the largest Chinese airlift to the country in such a short time frame. China is openly backing Iran, and this was on this was about 2 weeks back. To your point,
and so that's a strategic barrier now for the United States. You have a peer competitor, another major superpower in the world, backing your direct adversary right now, which means that, if you take the wrong move in Iran, then you give China a reason to either retaliate in the region or potentially cook something off that, a war that you're not necessarily ready to go off, and
would you say like also though, like IRGC and Russia, they didn't actually I think a lot of people thought, okay, they have a very good relationship. But then Russia it didn't look like they helped when Israel just basically walked all over them, right? Like Israel pretty much in that 12-day war just walked all over them. China didn't do anything. Qatar did, yeah. Obviously, they maybe send more bot farms. Maybe TikTok, for 2 years hammers the Zionist Zionist, 7K, Jew. Yeah, they do that propaganda, but they didn't actually. It looked like they largely were like, all right, beat them. We're not going to do anything. Like, that's how it came off.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how Russia is going to play everything. Russia's very good.
The foreign minister of Russia, I think recently just was like, yeah, that's our boy, like Iran is our friend. We're not hiding it.
Right.
But earlier they didn't do any. But it didn't look like they got involved. Now, do you think that was the deal? Because I remember Witkoff also went to Russia. Just in general, do you think that it's a situation where they're doing trade-offs, where Trump's maybe also doing behind-the-scene trade-offs, where Russia, Turkey, China are just like, hey, you know what? Go ahead, do it. Or you think right now it's also like oil deals, like maybe they're oil deals background,
I mean, the behind the scenes, talks that are happening, who knows what level those are at. And Russia's very good at doing things clandestinely. I mean, without a lot of the other people knowing. There's Russian state media that's only going to report exactly what the Kremlin tells them to, so on and so forth. So Putin has he has the ability to do things too, and it maybe not be watched as much with what's going on in Ukraine. So I'm not going to say Russia's not doing anything. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're just covering it up a little better. And they also, China's was an overt that they weren't hiding those. They could have done some other methods if they were really trying to clandestinely give support, but that was an overt like admission of support on purpose, and they did that to show that they are backing Iran. So that was a message as well. And maybe Russia's just waiting to either maybe they don't want to send a message, or maybe I don't know what is all going on with that, but Russia would rather Iran, the Islamic regime, stay in power in Iran. That's for sure.
Well, you said Venezuela was like a last node for China. I'm with you on that, man. I definitely I came to a similar conclusion. So let's say so you said Venezuela was the last node for China, communist China, and also Hezbollah, right? So would you say Iran is the last major hub tying together these, proxy networks, or are there others that we're missing?
There's probably some others that, if you look at the Belt and Road Initiative that China's pushing, it's all economic based right now, and there are some ties to some things that could potentially move to like China owning certain infrastructure inside some of these companies if once they default. But having certain nations kind of under your thumb, like Iran, like Venezuela, helps regional initiatives move forward. And so disrupting those relationships now puts a wrench in the other plans that China has in those regions. So for sure, it's not just a military aspect there. You have to go all the way through what we call dime fill, which is the diplomatic, information, military, economic, financial intelligence, and I don't know what the L is, but that you go through all these aspects of each country, and then you kind of weigh the strategic value of those countries, and that's how they're looking at the world. And a lot of people don't even kind of understand how that even works. So when you look at what was lost from Venezuela, from their standpoint, it's a significant presence inside of the same part of the globe as the United States. So it was just like if Cuba were then to fall and there was no longer China or Russia friendly regimes in South America, how much more beneficial is that for the United States? It's significantly more beneficial for the United States. So, and it's less beneficial for those countries that want to project power in our hemisphere. So that kind of makes sense. It's all global superpower plays that are unfolding, and they all have different motives and things that they want to accomplish. So,
I mean, honestly, bro, to me, I feel like that W was so big of getting Maduro and getting it with such little civilian casualties. It's sort of like mind-boggling that it was not more celebrated here in the United States. I mean, I can't say that I'm not like, yeah. I mean, the woke media, what are they going to complain about Trump, but yeah. Like it's just shameless, man. Like he actually pulled off what Marco Rubio or the military, special ops, all these guys, man, they pulled off something, so incredible. And like they literally took this guy with such little civilian casualties, and they did it in such a fast period with such a small team. And this is from a country that was basically bringing drugs to our country, man. They were terrorizing our country. And to your point, you got Iranians there, not just communist China, right? So there, you got Hezbollah there, you got military training there, so you got communist terrorists, you got the whole green red there having a discotheque, having a nightclub there, basically having an orgy out there, and here it is stopping it, and then it just seems like that it was almost like it was so taken for granted. It was
diminished. It was diminished by how terrible our media is, because they refuse to give Trump a win, right? Like it's more important to be against anything Trump does than to take the American win, right? And that's what's the sad point of our politics at this point. But yeah, I mean, people don't understand that, Venezuela. So when Chavez took over and then nationalized a bunch of the industries, redid the Constitution, took away guns, all that kind of stuff. Pretty terrible. But then when Maduro took power after him, Maduro turned the country into a cartel. Like literally, they were using the Venezuelan army to transport drugs in and out of their country, and then they allowed Hezbollah to own training bases inside of Venezuela. So it's basically like you just had Pablo Escobar completely take over this country, and now he's the president and openly running drugs all across, not only into the United States, but across the world. So yeah, and then you go into a compound and you get this guy with, like you said, minimal casualties, really, and especially minimal Venezuelan casualties, because most of the people that died were Cuban mercenaries. But and then diminish how awesome that mission was, and how, I mean, that's exactly what Special Operations is for, is to affect strategic change with a tactical level mission. But that people don't understand the levels of warfare. There's tactical, operational, and strategic. If you have a tactical mission that can obtain strategic level results, that's a really big thing. That's really good. Now you don't have to move an aircraft carrier group, because you sent in a small little team and they did that job like that.
Yeah. I mean, if so, like in general, also, like since we're talking about South America here, we do have a lot of Brazilian Americans. I know I definitely have a good portion of my audience is actually Brazilian. I don't know why. I appreciate the heck out of them. I've been to Brazil. I've done business in Brazil. But so if Venezuela had completely gone under the control of communist China, the IRGC, Russia, that access, okay, what do you think that would have actually meant for Brazil economically and militarily? What's the bottom line there?
I mean, it just it depends on. It would depend on what Brazil and what like Chile and some of the other nations in South America were going to do about it. But it would obviously, it's kind of like having a neighbor that now is like rabid, and you got to worry about them. And maybe they're not your target right now. You're not their target right now, but they're still a problem, and they could bring problems to you and your people in the future. So that creates a level of reactionism, that creates a level of anxiety from like a national level. So yeah, I mean, obviously having a democratic government take over Venezuela and actually run it how it's supposed to. I mean, Venezuela was a paradise before Chavez took over. Just, you go back and look, and a super wealthy country, their oil is kind of crappy, but they have a lot of it, a ton of it. So once you get the right refineries to do it, they have a ton of resources and could be a very wealthy country, and could have, systems in place where their citizens are taken care of very well too. So, but then, when a collectivist takes over, everything's always going to go to shit. And it's just literally every time a collectivist regime is taken over, it's gone to shit in the history of mankind. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, people are talking about like, really, I don't even call it a success. China is still existing today as a communist, socialist country, but it's kind of like a quasi socialist, capitalist, weird mix. Another thing that's kind of weird about China is but like the state can nationalize anything, any company or anything within China that they want to. Even companies that operate in foreign countries, China can nationalize those as long as they're Chinese nationals like owning them. So, but China is going to collapse too eventually. Eventually there's going to be a revolution, because tyranny can only last for so long, right? And so we'll kind of see what happens with it.
But. So right now I got footage on the stream. This is I think you looked at this earlier. You had it on your X account. By the way, love your X account. By the way, and first of all, thank you everyone retweeting, sharing. Please, thank you. If you're enjoying this, please retweet, please share, engage. Any questions? And we have a very special guest here. He's former Special Ops, former Green Beret American. He served. He's several countries. He has a pretty good clue what the heck is going on here. A lot more than I do. This footage right now we're looking at is someone from Tehran. He's claiming that the Army General Headquarters. This is earlier today. This is about just about 6 hours earlier. It was posted of an Army general headquarters building that's caught on fire, getting hit by an explosion. Would you say that this is the sort of stuff in general that we were talking about earlier, where there's just like little attacks going
Yep.
on, accidents?
Yeah, this is a great sign. So this is one of the things that the world is looking for, is these kinds of attacks. They're basically attacks on important key infrastructure, whether that be headquarters, like this would be a headquarters for military. Now, with that, the goal isn't always even to kill a bunch of people. They could have done this when it was a little bit more evacuated, but just having the building gone in and of itself creates a lot of problems for the regime. Once these start adding up, and you start seeing some more of these, more overt type of attacks and explosions and compromising of key infrastructure, that's when the rest of the world's like, okay, we're moving into a position now where they're likely in the organization phase, at least, maybe even in the buildup. And then if they're in that phase, we're getting close to where they could be ready for employment. And then employment is where now bombs are going to drop, and we're going to hit key infrastructure and knock out real targets, strategic targets, so that then they can action and move forward from there and actually take real ground. So this is a very good sign.
You're talking about the sabotage of the key, infrastructure here. I mean, it just seems like, don't you think the leaders maybe of the IRGC are also thinking, wait a minute, Mossad is this superior intelligence agency that's basically undefeated? Like if it's like an agency that if you were hiding, you could not hide from them. They would find you anywhere in the world. They would hunt you down and find you. You don't want to piss them off, right? So like, don't you think? And also the CIA as like the most powerful intelligence agency in the world, you don't want to piss them off. Like, don't you think that, or maybe I'm wrong. I honestly, I don't know. I'm just a civilian asking this question. But like, wouldn't the IRGC say, hey, wait a minute, why don't we move what we have from these headquarters? Because these guys aren't playing games with us. They clearly know where our buildings are. Heck, in the 12-day war, they even hunted down our men in their bedroom, like after what they did to Lebanon, the Hezbollah, how they went inside of like a bunker, bro. Like they literally probably already know where the top 20, 30 guys already are. This is just a matter of what's coming after they knock these guys out, So like the military headquarters is actually hit. Like to your earlier point, is that just like a sign that we're going from a shadow conflict into an open kinetic phase, or can we just still say, or can we just still, it's still deniable? Like how much more? Yeah,
I don't think we're openly kinetic until we see actual ground forces taking key terrain, right? So they've had a few smaller cities that the resistance movement was able to take control of for a while, and I think they ended up losing control of some of them. That's the next step beyond sabotage and things happening like this at key infrastructure. The next step is seeing actual forces, ground on ground forces or ground air ground forces actually working and taking ground and taking terrain, and then being able to hold that terrain. So because holding it's pretty important.
Right. So like in the last like week or so, I'd say in the last like 5 days, there's definitely, it seems like more incidences of explosions happening in Iran.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good sign.
And that's a good sign.
That's a good sign for the resistance movement. Like if nothing was happening and then the protests were kind of dwindling out and there was nothing, no attacks happening whatsoever, then I would be more, prone to say, maybe this is petering out a little bit, and maybe, they didn't have the network set up that were necessary to make all this happen. These attacks and these intermittent kind of things, these are targets of opportunity. So that headquarters building, maybe that's not a huge significant attack, right? Maybe they already did offload stuff from there. Maybe they did already move some things and move stuff around where it wasn't that crucial of attack, but it's still a symbol, right? So these targets of opportunity are what's going to happen first. They're easy. So, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. Target of opportunity is you're going to pick a target that is opportunistic for you. It's easy for you to hit. It's easy for you to be successful for. And there's not going to be a big, hardened force that's going to come take you out, when you try to do this. So seeing those unfold is good. And that just shows you that they're progressing forward. And again, one of the key directives of all this is going to be to find, locate, identify, and then disrupt or dismantle all jamming equipment that, the IRGC is using in the population centers to keep satellite signals from going out. There's going to be all kinds of these little directives that different cells are going to be tasked with undertaking. And once these things start happening, we will get to see them, because now signals will start coming out because some of the jammers have been taken down. Now, if they take like I said, they take an ISP, an internet service provider, and they take that and they override it, and now they give back internet to a certain region or a certain city or a certain part of the city at least, or certain little things. Those are all really good signs, because it shows that the movement is progressing forward and is taking terrain and infrastructure.
All right, so right here, just want to play this image here, get your feedback. So these two guys, they're in the IDF. One's Israel's, it's a picture of Israel's Air Force Commander Major General Tomar Bar and Military Intelligence Chief Major General Shalomi Binder. They say they've concluded a lengthy and central discussion approving and finalizing operational plans for possible action against Iran should the United States launch an attack on Tehran. Israel could take part in such a scenario if it comes under attack. I mean, to me that seems pretty obvious. I mean, is that just messaging there? Is that just like part of psychological warfare?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of psyops. Likely, again, think of like any show you watch in like The Diabolical Genius or whatever that's taking. He's not going to give away his plan if there's any chance that plan could be stopped, right? So, these guys in these positions, they're not going to come out and say something that's going to compromise them actually doing something. So it's likely psyop, and for whatever reason, they've already accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, and now they're ready to move to the next phase. Or it was a signal, a public signal that like, hey, we're moving this to the next phase, and you're, we're not going to tell you when, but something's happening. There's a lot of different, and that could also be messaging to the Iranian people, right? Because eventually that stuff's going to get through, even through a blackout. Information is going to get in, because there is going to always be clandestine ways into. I mean, think of every country. Think of the United States under Prohibition, right? Like, Prohibition is what really created the massive organized crime problem we had in the United States. In the early freaking 20th century. So if you look at it the same way there, Iran they're going to have their drug trade. They're going to have their other underground kind of black site trading that's going to happen. All that stuff is those criminal networks, if you want to call it like they're criminal networks, those are going to be used for the auxiliary and the underground as well, because they're already underground. They're already operating in the gray where no one knows they are. So they're the perfect mechanism. So that exists in every country except for maybe North Korea. Maybe North Korea is like the one out there, just flying without very many spies inside.
Why?
Just because North Korea has the entire country locked down to a point where there's no freedom of movement. There's no, North Korea is just a far different situation than Iran is. This is a far different situation than any other country in the world. Yeah. Like I think like 20 people in the entire country of North Korea have access to the internet. So like it's completely propagandized from the moment they're born to the moment they die in whatever work camp, however, like it's a terrible situation in North Korea actually. But with Iran, even though it is a authoritarian regime in charge of them, there's still freedom of movement, especially there was before this all kind of really kicked off. So you're going to have mechanisms in place already. So that information will get in and out. And that's how we're getting these videos here. That's how we're seeing, what we're seeing and getting the information we're getting is those clandestine networks.
So right here we're looking at footage. Basically, some people are saying that this is basically they're hiding their work. I guess their war crimes. It's a massive cold storage facility inside of occupied Iran. You think right here the IRGC is destroying evidence of protester deaths, or what would you call this? Or do you think it was actually something completely else, and that's actually the psyop? The psyop is that that's what actually was going on. Maybe in fact it was something that they attacked the IRGC. I mean, who knows? I mean, just in general, what would you? Is this is obviously a psyop also, or what do you, or just in general?
It could be a psyop. It could have been sabotage on key infrastructure, or it could be that they're destroying evidence. I mean, it's hard to say exactly what that is. That's a massive fire. But it's a lot of it could be propaganda from either side. I mean, even the video you showed a minute ago of the Army HQ burning. I mean, how do we know that that wasn't an Iranian plant to make the rest of the world think that they're in a higher phase than they actually are? Maybe they've already compromised every network. I don't know. Hopefully not. Hopefully this was something that was important to the regime, and now it's being destroyed by clandestine actors and to help the resistance movement. But again, it's hard to say until we move a little bit farther along and we get more information from there. We're all just kind of grasping at whatever information is actually coming out of the country.
When you have like a situation, where the CENTCOM, like you hear the word CENTCOM in the news, for people who obviously, for people who don't know what CENTCOM is and don't know, the importance of it. Here, for example, here's a CENTCOM commander who took parts in the talks with IRGC and Americans. What would you say is like the significance of him coming all the way there? Like, is that a big deal, generally speaking, or like is that not a big deal?
It's probably more propaganda. I mean, it's probably more just to like send a message this way or that way. A commander coming in to get a better view of what's happening. I mean, he can see that from his office, right? We have satellites and phones and FaceTime. Obviously it's different terminology in the military, but we have all of that. So, him showing up in person, there's probably strategic meetings that he's a part of. Absolutely. But like publicly announcing it and all that kind of stuff is a message for sure.
All right, guys. So we got to do a couple more questions here. It's late. Thank you everyone for joining. This is from James Harris. What's up, James? Please, everyone, retweet, share. Thank you for your support. So here we go. Do y'all think the U.S. is willing to unleash Sunni Muslims with terror affiliations on the regime? Are we that cynical, or do we think we can do it with just good guys?
I mean, no, I don't think so, but more not because we wouldn't do it, just more because, the Gulf states have already kind of shown that they don't want any part of this. They don't even want to be able to have their bases be used for anything that's going to happen with the Iran escalation. So I would say probably not. Again, it's not a cut and dry. We wouldn't, or it's probably a little bit of both. We wouldn't, and they wouldn't either. And because what do they gain? What would they gain out of it either? To go in and fight, other than to just fight the other side of Islam that they dislike. They've been doing that for 1,000 years anyway, so I don't think so.
What just before we wrap this, thank you for staying for so long, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man.
Hey man, I would like to know what's your thoughts on what's going on in Minnesota, man? Like in general, like when I saw a video and I didn't quite understand. It looked like the guy got attacked. It was of a police officer killing a protester. Like, do you think that was considered excessive force or not? Or like, I don't know. Like, I just saw the clip.
I think it was.
Yeah.
It's an engineered scenario, not from the standpoint that like there's puppet masters pulling every string, but Governor Waltz and the mayor, whatever his name is of Minneapolis, refused to give. So what happens when these federal law enforcement agents come in, whether it's marshals, whether it's ICE, HSI, like any of those that are coming in? Local law enforcement is the cordon. So the same thing happens in the military. If we're going to go hit a target here, we're going to take what we call uplift, or like an infantry, either platoon or company, and they're going to give us an outer cordon so that this area inside of here we know is safe, and we're not going to, if any attacks do come from the outside, they're going to be able to stop it. Same thing happens in policing. They're going to go execute these warrants. Local police would generally be there, or state police, or someone else, and they would be there to hold back if there was crowds or if there was a protest going on. They would be there to help hold back that protest and hold back those people from interacting directly with those federal agents. In Minnesota, they refused to do that, so they wouldn't give local support or state support. So the ICE agents are just on their own, and now they're having to do their own cordon, and they're having to deal with trying to make these arrests that they're this is their job to do. And then you have these activists that are part of the networks, like ICE Watch, and they're little mini insurgencies. They're made of a bunch of nerds that are really terrible at their job. Like I already know soft dudes that have compromised all their networks. The major law enforcement in Minnesota that dislikes Walt is already kind of mapping a lot of these networks too. So they're not long for this world, but their primary goal was to create a situation where something like this is going to happen. So they were hoping that if they can put enough pressure on the ICE agents by having protesters there, that in like people being people and moments escalating, they were hoping for an incident to happen, and it did happen twice. And both times, I believe they were justified shoots. The first one, she hits him with a car. Guess what? You can't drive your car at a police officer. You're gonna get shot. And then the guy decided to not let them know that he was armed, and then they found out he had a gun on him mid-fight. And there is the video. You can see him get disarmed by one of the ICE agents, but the other ICE agents didn't know that he was disarmed. All they know is they heard gun, 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 and then he reaches for a holster, whether it's empty or not. You're talking about microseconds of time to make a decision that is you or him dying, right? So in that situation, what are you going to do as the officer? It's an impossible situation to be in because there's no real great alternative, right? But at the end of the day, those dudes are still alive because they acted in that way. And again, it all could have been avoided if local police would have been there. They would have been holding everyone back, and none of this would have happened. And plus, those local police would have dealt with, are able to deal with the locals better because they're part of that community too. So it's just one of those things.
So I'm biased, man. I have a lot of respect for the law enforcement. I think they're dealing with a lot of BS, man. They're just doing their job, man. They're just doing their job, bro. I heard Dan Bongino say something where he nailed it, I thought, where he was like, look, the woke media, they're going to talk to you about the two illegals that, they barely did anything. Like they were working as like a maid or like a waiter. But they were there with like 15 guys who may have been murderers, rapists, gangsters. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's sort of like, it's sort of crazy how they can just completely take that out. So here's a clip where apparently this was on X. This is what it says. What the fuck? Another white liberal woman in Minneapolis went on a racist rant in the face of a non-white ICE agent. F you, you're brown. Notice how nobody on the left is condemning this behavior. Not a single one of them. Very telling. All right, so I'll play the clips. Get your feedback. Here we go.
Like she should have been arrested right there.
Bro, I don't know about you, bro, but I just get rage when I think of the sheer disrespect they show law. Like, who the fuck does this? Who the heck does she think she is to even like? Who does she think is going to protect her from the rapists and the drug dealers and the people that will hijack her fucking car? Like, what nerve? What world do these psychos live, bro? They're that disrespectful to do that to the law enforcement. It's not like the law enforcement's making $80,000 a year, bro. No, $80,000 a month. He's not like a private equity guy. He's making $100,000. The guy's making maybe $70,000, $80,000 a year, risking his life, taking his disrespectfulness whale.
Yeah, I mean that's just all the messaging that you're getting from media, from Democrat politicians. Like, it's all on them, and they know it's all on them. But that's again, the left needs martyrs to move these things forward. So they're setting the stage. They're pushing in all of these protesters. They're funding networks that are identifying ICE agents, their vehicles, where they're going, what they're doing, all this kind of stuff. And then they're following around and harassing and interdicting them to try to stop them from doing their job.
Bro,
that in and of itself is going. So, yeah, I mean, so like that, all of those moves right there are going to create conflict, and they need that conflict because they need someone to get hurt, arrested in the wrong way, or maybe too rough or whatever, or they need someone killed so that they can wave the bloody shirt, as the communists like to call it, wave the bloody shirt and show that these dudes are horrible, they're terrible, they're murdering us in the streets, and then they message even more to grow their movement. That's what they're doing. So,
bro, it's like, I don't know, like, am I just so old? I'm 45, man. I in the 1990s, when I was a teenager, I never would have thought when I'm in my 40s, I would look at stuff like this. Like, back then, like when I was in the law enforcement academy around 1997, 1998, like in Virginia, you would never look at people do this to police officers.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because of social media, man. But this is not even like, this is not even like, oh yeah, it's a guy that's, disrespecting a cop. He has a mental disorder, or, he's just a loser. He thinks like a loser. No, but this is like a lady. This is like a lady that maybe works as like a school teacher,
Yeah.
And she's doing this openly. She wants the confrontation with the law enforcement who's there to protect her, literally.
A lot of these people are paid. And like Data Republican and some other big accounts on X have identified these funding networks and shown, like, some of it's even foreign money coming in and paying these nonprofits to then set up these protests. Yeah. And they're facilitating the whole thing. They're providing all the stuff, and then they're setting up networks. They're setting up chats and different messaging boards, identifying ICE vehicles, identifying their locations, and they're immediately putting call outs when they identify where ICE agents are so that they can get protesters to those locations immediately. So this is an operation that's happening. This is not just happening, organically in a vacuum. This is an actual operation on U.S. soil to break down the structures of our society. And one of the structures is law enforcement. And so that's why you've seen so much messaging in the last 10 years from the left and from Democrats saying, vilifying police officers all through. It's all just in coordination with all of this, because nations are built on pillars, right? Military, law enforcement, economic pillars, all these different things. If you can take down enough of these pillars, if you can get the public to lose trust in these pillars, then that's how color revolutions are actually successful in overthrowing regimes. So that's what you're seeing.
So we're back here. We're looking at the footage of the lady commenting on stuff. This lady's pretty crazy, man. She's literally getting in the face of these cops.
Yeah, like she should have been arrested. She should have been arrested when she tried to kick. Like, you know, kicking. Like, what do you think you're doing? You know, you're now obstructing a federal agent. They don't have time to deal with this all, so they're just being told to walk away. Also, they're being told to not engage and escalate the situation, just because you're feeding into what the left wants if you engage and then escalate it. But that's why they're doing this all. They're trying to elicit a response.
So yeah, that's exactly, yeah, that's a good point. What so when all those so now after that person got killed, what a lot of these off, you know, it's crazy, man. Like, I focus so much on what's going on in foreign policy or what's going on globally, that I just, man, like, I'm rooting for the law enforcement. I'm rooting for these guys. I'm rooting for them, you know, like, but I just don't know as much what's going on. So like and I know this sounds a pretty simple question. Like, I think the officers left, right? They like, Trump took a lot of the officers out of Minnesota. Is that accurate or no? Or they will?
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't look into it a lot. I know they came to an agreement. I think they are pulling some out. But again, it's all just for show. Walt and the mayor of Minneapolis pushed as hard as they could push without, you know, overtly crossing the line. Another thing to point out is that all of these protests, these ICE protests that are breaking out in Minneapolis, it's kind of convenient timing that they all started right after Nick Shirley identified hundreds of millions of dollars of fraud in the area. So it's kind of weird that it's the exact same place that just happened, right?
Yeah. Why would you? Yeah. Please tell me. Please elaborate. Yeah, it is. I didn't think about that, actually. I didn't put that.
Yeah, it's changed the media cycle. They want the fraud out of the media cycle. They want less people looking into it, so they push on into the next thing, which is, hey, let's get some protests, and then something bad's going to happen, and we'll make that national news instead. So everybody's already forgot about all the Somali fraud, you know, billions of dollars. So,
yo, bro, that's a good point, man. All right, guys. So, hey, this was an amazing stream. Nardino Gibson, I hope I pronounced that correctly. James Harris, Emmanuel Shahid. Yo, I got one question here. I think that's the one, kind of feel bad not to say it. Emmanuel Shahid said, Islam needs to be dismantled. Don't care if it's Sunni or Shia. Under their leadership is a problem. Iran regime is a good example of Muhammad time.
Yeah, I mean, they're an existential enemy to everybody that's not part of Islam. So it's hard to, like, obviously I am against genocide. But at the same time, you have to like, how long are we willing to fight these same people that we've been fighting for 1,300 and a half years now, you know? And it's consistently them starting the fights. That's the other thing too. Like, you have to look at it that way. Like, how many times are Christian nations just going in and conquering Muslim nations? How many times has that happened? It hasn't, right? Because even Iraq, even Afghanistan, even though I can sit here and disagree with, I disagree with going into Iraq at all. But I understood the Afghanistan piece. And if Afghanistan would have been allowed to unfold under SOF and CIA direction like it was, the mission would have been done in less than 2 years probably, and we would have been out. But they needed to protract that war so they could go into Iraq for massive campaign. But there was never like we're taking over and now this is a Christian nation and you're going to be ruled by Christians and you're going to have jizya taxes and you're going to have all these things that all these Islamic nations have done to former Christian nations. So yeah, over the last 1,300 years, they've conquered I think it's 12. It's actually more nations. It's just there's regions like all of Turkey, which was Anatolia, or part of the Byzantine Empire or the Greeks. That's why it's Istanbul today. It's not Constantinople anymore, even though it was Constantinople a lot longer than it was Istanbul. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, man. Hey, man. It's been a very, very good having you, man. It's straight up, man. Chase. Hey, so where could everyone find you, man? Where's the like your main social media app? What's is it X? I know your X tweets are fucking amazing, bro. I definitely recommend everyone check
Yeah,
out his.
X is the main platform, but GBNT 1952 is the handle, and it's on. I have Instagram and I have some other socials. They're smaller, and I'm kind of working on them, but X is the main one where I put on information.
All right, guys. So thank you for your service, my man. Thank you, and everyone, please retweet, reshare. On Monday, this is Friday. On Monday, this will come out for those of you who want to listen to it on audio on iTunes and Spotify. All right, have a good weekend, and thanks, Chase, for joining us, man.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Okay, all right, man. You too.